This is a presentation on human immunity. Firstly, an understanding of non-specific defences against disease will be shown by describing the first and second line of defence. Firstly, what is immunity? Well, immunity is the body's ability to defend itself from infection. So, what is an infection? Well, infections are described as the invasion of the body by microorganisms that are not ordinarily present in the human body, such as the following. Bacteria, which are single-celled microorganisms which are very diverse, coming in a variety of different shapes and sizes, causing illnesses such as bacterial meningitis and tuberculosis. Viruses, which are parasitic organisms that require a host cell to reproduce and complete their life cycle. Viral infections include common cold and norovirus. Fungi causes many surface skin infections, such as athlete's foot. Fungi does not necessarily cause illness. Parasites, which are germs that cause diseases like malaria, which is spread by mosquito bites. Other parasites can be transferred to humans through the feces of animals. Infections can be contracted in a variety of ways, including directly from an infected person, through coughing, sneezing or kissing, or via infected animals, by being bit or scratched, and also mother to the unborn baby. Infections can be passed on through the umbilical cord. Indirectly, where an infected person touches an object such as door handles to which germs are left on, and an uninfected person touches it after and becomes infected. Through contaminated food and water, for example, foods that have been prepped or processed in unhygienic conditions or have been undercooked can cause E. coli, which causes food poisoning, or even through the bite of an insect. For example, a mosquito bite causes diseases such as malaria. Secondly, how does one's body fight against infection? Well, the body has three lines of defense. During this section, the focus will be on the first and second lines of defense. These first two lines are non-specific, innate defenses, and they function to stop pathogens from entering the body as well as to remove any unwanted invaders. They do not distinguish between different types of infections. They respond to all of them in the same way. They are natural defenses that have not been learnt and are present since birth and efficient against a variety of diseases. The first line of defense consists of physical and chemical barriers to prevent entry of the pathogen. Examples of the first line of the defense are skin and mucous membranes. This slide looks at the skin. The skin is the body's largest organ. It works as the primary shield between pathogens and your body. The skin acts as a mechanical physical barrier. It has three layers, with the epidermis being the most outer layer. It is waterproof and provides the initial barrier. Microorganisms that dwell on your skin are unable to penetrate it until the skin is broken. If the skin is cut, it begins to mend itself almost immediately by creating a scab, which acts as a physical barrier against infection while it heals. There are areas in the body that are not covered by the skin but also need barriers to prevent infection. Areas like the nose, mouth and eyes, and these are protected through the mucous membrane. The eyes, ears, nose, sinuses, mouth, throat, gastrointestinal tract, respiratory tract, urogenital tract and vaginal tract are lined with mucous membranes, which not only prevents infectious pathogens and allergens from invading the body but also allows nutrients through to maintain the body's healthy status. Mucous membranes are coated with secretions that fight microorganisms and form an effective defense against infection. For example, the mucous membranes of the eyes produce tears, which contains an enzyme lysosome, which is a chemical barrier that attacks bacteria and helps protect the eyes from infection, such as conjunctivitis. The nose is the first line of defense for the respiratory system. Cells within the nose produces mucus, which is a sticky substance that lines the wall. Pathogens enter the nose through the nasal cavity, which are greeted by internal hairs that operate as a physical barrier. Here the hair helps capture pathogens in the mucus before they can enter into the lungs. Mucus alongside any trapped pathogens are removed upon blowing of the nose or coughing. If, however, pathogens manage to get through, they will be met by another physical barrier in the airways known as cilia, which are tiny hair-like projections which sweep them away from the lungs and down into the stomach. The stomach produces hydrochloric acid, which is a chemical barrier against infection and is powerful enough to kill any pathogens caught in the mucus in the airways or consumed in food. If the first line of the defense is breached and pathogens have passed through, then the body's second line of the defense is activated, where cells, organs and tissues work together to protect the body, known as the immune system, and it attacks the evading pathogens to stop or minimize the infection through the means of creating the likes of inflammation. When injury to the skin or infection occurs, it generally triggers an inflammatory response, which involves a number of cellular events. White blood cells release alarm chemicals, allowing the blood vessels around the site of infection to dilate, which enables a higher blood flow into the damaged area, releasing white blood cells into the affected tissue, creating inflammation, where they can start fighting against the infection and make repairs. Due to the excess blood and inflammation, the area can become red, swollen, hot and painful. Also, fever, which is usually when the body is fighting against a virus or bacteria, the body temperature will increase, usually above 38 degrees, with symptoms such as shivering and sweating, creating a fever, which activates cellular systems to ensure the immune system responds appropriately to combat the virus or bacteria. Fever will reduce as the infection heals. As part of the second line of the defence, I will now discuss phagocytosis. Neutrophils and macrophages are both blood cells known as phagocytes, and they are engulfing cells and they are attracted to inflammation. They push through the capillary wall and enter the infective tissue, where they engulf and digest the bacteria. This is a process known as phagocytosis. During this process, the following occurs. Firstly, the phagocytes, such as neutrophils, pushes through the capillary wall and enters the infective area. The neutrophil will then attract the bacteria to its membrane. The neutrophil will then engulf the bacteria. This bacterium is now known as phagosome. Once fully engulfed, lysosomes, which are digestive enzymes, are formed. These fuse with the phagosome, in which the bacteria is digested and killed. Macrophages can also help to destroy germs at a distance by producing proteins such as cytokines. These proteins can make holes into the pathogen's cell wall, causing them to die. Produced proteins can stick to the pathogens and attract phagocytes to come and destroy them. An invaded cell will produce a chemical known as interferon, which prevents that cell from producing molecules that the bacteria needs to survive. During this second section, there will be a focus on specific immunity. We have established that a pathogen is an infectious agent that can be bacteria, virus, protozoans, and fungi. Antigens are part of the pathogen. They are the part of the pathogen that tell the body that it is being attacked. They cause the immune response in the body. Acquired immunity, which is known as specific immunity, is not present at birth. It is learned and developed over time. As we are exposed to more germs throughout our lives, our immunity gets stronger. This is because as our immune system encounters antigens from the natural environment, they determine the optimal strategy to combat each antigen, learn and adapt from it, as well as form a memory of it. So the next time they encounter that specific antigen, they remember it and attack it more quickly and in a tailored manner. Throughout this presentation so far, we have established that our bodies have both non-specific immunity and specific immunity. Within each immunity, there are different leukocytes, known as the white blood cells, that are made in the bone marrow and perform roles. Firstly, we'll take a look at the roles of the cells of the non-specific immunity. The roles of the phagocytes, neutrophils, and macrophages were discussed in the previous section. There are other cells such as eosinophils. These contain highly toxic proteins and kill any bacteria and parasites in contact. Basophils, these are the rarest white blood cells. These combat multicellular parasites as well as release histamines in mediating allergic reactions. Basophils also contain heparin, which is a blood-thinning substance. Lymphocytes are natural killer cells that stop the spread of infections by combating the infected host cell. Now we will take a look at the roles of the cells of the specific immunity. There are two lymphocytes in acquired immune system, which are the T cells and the B cells. T cells are the most common, accounting for 80% of all lymphocytes. These cells mature in the thymus gland, which is the lymphatic system, and there are 3 T cells that all play a role in destroying problem cells, such as infected cells with a virus or damaged cancer cells. These T cells are helper T cells. These are the most common and serve as a regulator, and when in presence of a foreign pathogen, they release lymphokines that stimulate other T cells into fighting action. Cytotoxic T cells, these are the body's defenders. They destroy the infected foreign pathogens by releasing the protein perforin, which perforates infected cells, which in effect kills them. Suppressor T cells. Once the foreign pathogens have been dealt with, these T cells suppress the other T cells and the system is then switched off. B cells account for 10 to 15% of the lymphocytes. These mature in the bone marrow and are responsible for the production and release of antibodies when activated. There are plasma B cells that secrete antibodies into the circulatory system, which maintains immunity, and memory B cells that preserve the memory of the specific antigen in the lymph nodes and can be utilized again if necessary. Antibodies are also known as immunoglobulins, and they have many roles within the body, such as targeting an infection, removal of antigens, recruitment of immune cells, and neutralization of toxins. As we can see, immunoglobulins are large Y-shaped blood proteins made up of 4 polypeptide chains, with 2 identical and light heavy chains, with the arms of the Y being the binding site to foreign particles, to which they then attack. There are 5 different types of immunoglobulins, which are G, A, M, E, and D. Immunoglobulin G is the most common. G molecule has the ability to trigger a direct attack on whichever it recognizes as being foreign. G is also the only kind of immunoglobulin that crosses the placenta from the mother to the fetus, offering some kind of protection to the unborn children against diseases they have not yet encountered. This is important in the cellular defense of the soft, moist mucosal surfaces of the body, for example, inside the mouth. As we can see, this is structurally different. It comprises of 5 sets of 2 binding sites and is the first immunoglobulin to respond to the presence of an antigen. Levels of this increases in response to parasitic infections and allergic reactions. D, which is uncommon and is thought to function as an antigen receptor on the surface of the B cells. Self-tolerance refers to the immune system's ability to recognize the difference between self and non-self-produced antigens, only enabling an attack on the non-self. The major histocompatibility complexes 1 and 2, as well as the human leukocyte antigen gene complex, are all cell surface proteins and are 2 of the most essential factors in allowing the immune system to discriminate between self and non-self. So when the immune system encounters an antigen with a MHC cell on its surface, it will not be attacked, as it is recognized as a self-produced antigen. But if the immune system encounters an antigen that it does not recognize and is new, then it will be attacked and remembered by the B cells for the next encounter with it. The response levels to antigens vary. If the antigen is new, the response level was weaker than that of an antigen that has been seen before. If the immune system loses the ability to self-recognize, then the body can start to attack its own cells, which may cause an autoimmune disease. Autoimmunity is one of the causes of hypersensitivity in humans. Hypersensitivity is an abnormal immune reaction that is caused by an immune response to repeated exposure to the same antigen and grouped into 4 categories, as we can see. When a person's organ system, such as kidney or liver, malfunctions beyond repair, it can be replaced with a healthy organ from a donor by a procedure known as transplantation. This is where cells, tissues, or organs are transferred from one person to another. An organ cannot just be replaced with anyone's organ. Therefore, tissue typing ensures that the organ or tissue is as similar as possible to the tissues of the recipient. The match will not be perfect, as not 2 people have identical tissue antigens, except for identical twins. However, the body will see the new organ as a foreign antigen, as the cells on the organ are different, and so the organ is recognized as being non-self. So if the match is not similar enough to recipients, then it can trigger a blood transfusion or a transplant rejection. To avoid the body launching an attack, the foreign tissue monoclonal antibodies are used during and after surgery to stop the function of T cells. There are 3 types of rejection: hyperacute and instant rejection. The antigens are completely unmatched, therefore organ removed instantly. Acute, which is the most common, where rejection may occur within the first week or up to 3 months after. All recipients face some amount of acute rejection. Chronic, which can occur over many years, where the transplanted tissues or organ is slowly damaged by the body's constant response against it. Our immune system protects us from disease and infection. However, the immune system can start to attack the healthy cells, which causes autoimmune diseases. Specific causes for autoimmune diseases are unclear, but there are some theories that believe drugs, chemical, and environmental irritants factors are involved. There are many autoimmune diseases that affect almost any part of the body. One of the autoimmune diseases is multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is a condition that can affect the brain and spinal cord, causing a wide range of potential symptoms, including problems with vision, arm or leg movement, sensation, or balance. It is a condition where the immune system targets, damages, and scars the myelin sheath, which is a layer that surrounds and protects the nerves, that allows the flow of electrical impulses to travel along the nerve cells quickly and efficiently. This damage results in the impulses becoming slow or disrupted. There are 2 types of MS: primary progressive MS and the more common relapsing remitting MS, which is where relapses are instances of new or worsening symptoms in people, which usually deteriorate over a few days and then linger for days, weeks, or months, and then gradually improve over the same time span. There is no cure for MS, but there are treatments to try and control it, such as steroid medicine to aid in the relapse recovery. Another autoimmune disease is rheumatoid arthritis, which is a long-term condition that causes pain, swelling, and stiffness in the joints. The condition usually affects the hands, feet, and wrists. With this disease, there may be periods of flare-ups when the condition worsens, and there may be periods of remission when the condition gets better or disappears. There is no cure, and causes are unclear, but it is thought women suffer with this condition more than men, and that smoking can contribute as well as being hereditary. Treatments are available to help manage the condition, such as long-term medicines to relieve symptoms and slow the progression down, physiotherapy, and surgery to correct joint problems that can arise. During this final section, the focus will be on the biology of vaccination. As we've learned through this presentation, acquired immunity is where immunity is learned and developed over a lifetime and can be active or passive immunity, both of which have natural and artificial sources. Active immunity is the immunity the body develops after being exposed to an infection or from receiving a vaccination. Both of these methods expose the immune system to a type of pathogen where the T cells and B cells notice an invader and therefore signals for an attack. If and when the body encounters this specific pathogen again, the alarm is raised and response is quick to prevent sickness. Here, the natural source would be the infection, where the body self-develops antibodies in the fight against disease, and the artificial source is from the vaccination, where the body develops antibodies through being intentionally exposed to foreign antigens to generate a protective immune response in advance. Active immunity has long-lasting results. Passive immunity is immunity the body acquires from someone or something. Unlike active immunity, passive immunity works instantly but is short-lived as the pathogen is not recognized again. For example, naturally the body can transfer maternal antibodies from mother to a child through the placenta or breast milk, which provides protection for the first 4 to 6 months of life before baby's own immune system starts to develop. Here, artificial passive sources would be antibodies given in the form of hemoglobin treatments. They are lab-made or come from other people. For example, a transfusion of antibodies made from someone else. Vaccinations help in the protection of serious disease. It is the process of exposing the body's immune system to a weakened or harmless version of a disease to stimulate white blood cells to create antibodies, which will provide immunity against that pathogen. There are many types of vaccinations, include live and inactive vaccines. Live vaccines contain small doses of the live but weakened version of that pathogen that causes a disease. Within 1 to 2 doses, they create long-lasting protection against diseases such as measles, mumps, and rubella. Inactive vaccines contain small doses of dead version of that pathogen that causes disease. Protection is not as strong as that of live vaccines, therefore more doses are required over a period of time to receive continuation of immunity. Inactive vaccines cover diseases such as hepatitis A. The body's primary response to a new, never-seen-before pathogen is slow, as it takes the immune system time to respond and to be identified by the B lymphocytes, and for the plasma cells to develop antibodies that are unique to that antigen. And this allows time for the infection to develop and cause symptoms. It's at this stage where memory cells are produced, and so a secondary response would occur if the same pathogen attacked again. Here, the immunological memory cells recognize that pathogen. Therefore, the response is to create antibodies faster and for longer periods of time, allowing for the infection to be fought off before symptoms appear. Measles is predominantly a childhood infection, although can affect any age. It's a serious disease and is highly contagious, caused by a virus. It is usually passed through direct contact and through the air. It firstly infects the respiratory tract before spreading throughout the body. As we can see from this table, prior to the introduction of measles vaccines, the cases of measles were extremely high, with extremely high rates of death. The first single measles vaccination was introduced in 1968, which reduced rates and the death toll. However, it was the introduction of the MRI vaccination in 1988 when rates dramatically declined, with rates being at a low of 1,193 in 2015 and 0 death rates recorded. With the introduction of the singles, measles and MRI vaccination, Public Health England estimates that in 20 million measles cases and 4,500 deaths have been averted in the UK. However, Public Health England reports that the number of children receiving the MRI vaccine declined in the 21st century, which has resulted in a spike of cases in the UK, where 2 children have died since 2006, and in the first 6 months of 2013 there were 1,287 cases, with 257 needing hospital admission. So it's clear with these statistics that although diseases will still exist, and measles hasn't been eradicated, vaccinations play a pivotal role in the protection against serious disease, as well as making huge savings within healthcare through not having to treat these diseases, and they reduce the development of antibiotic resistance. A contagious disease is one that spreads from person to person. A good example of this is the recent pandemic of COVID-19. And with this disease being new, no one was immune to it. Therefore, we had seen it spread like absolute wildfire. To build up immunity, a COVID-19 vaccination has been introduced, which needs the uptake of a high percentage of the population for there to be herd immunity protection, as it is difficult for infectious diseases to spread with the more people that are vaccinated. It also gives protection to the likes of young children and the sick who are unable to get vaccinated. However, gaining herd immunity can prove problematic when immunization rates fall. Herd immunity can break down, resulting in increased cases, and there could be several different strains of the pathogen, each with its own set of antigens. This is the issue of catching a cold. Hundreds of variations exist. Vaccines appear to be the best defense we have against diseases, which can be seen in relation to smallpox, which was the first infectious disease to have been eradicated by vaccination. There have been many vaccination programs, such as 6-in-1, pneumococcal, and MRI vaccination. With the parental consent, these vaccinations are given at specific ages throughout childhood. There is a vaccine program that vaccinates certain adult groups, such as elderly and disabled. For example, against flu, this vaccine is offered annually, and to help with the uptake of this, the role of the pharmacist has expanded, and those who find it difficult to attend a clinic due to work and other commitments can visit their local pharmacist instead. There are factors that affect vaccine uptake, including those that refuse to get vaccinated due to their beliefs that they cause more harm than good. These people are known as anti-vaxxers. Also, there was a claim linking MRI vaccine and autism, and although research has discredited this link, the uptake on the MRI has declined, leading to increased infection rates of diseases such as rubella. However, there are circumstances where uptake is unavoidable and temporary. For example, somebody who is recovering from another illness will not be vaccinated until fully recovered.